The introduction to the project is something that usually takes either a long time or short time, depending on how much you want to talk about work packages and contracts. Or on purpose, I decided to skip this formal part and go to the heart of the matter. So from the very first slide, I will introduce you to the vision that we had in the project. The most important thing for us is, okay, the keyword is resilience and our focus is on local communities. It says also from the acronym of the project. That is fine, but it is not straightforward to understand how we can use resilience in local communities. What we thought is to work towards the implementation of a strategic tool for assessing resilience. What you don't know, you cannot manage or change. And resilience cannot be measured directly with any kind of meter. So the assessment is the process rather than the measurement of resilience. All actors in communities are much more relevant than in large countries. Individuals have a major role, a projection to the what happens in the community. So we need to involve communities heavily. It's not just making polls. So the people in a community, which can be represented by local authorities in a way, but also from enterprises, organizations, and citizens themselves, have to be brought into the process with their own goals and needs, because resilience, as we know well, is not something that can be imposed. It's something that exists and should be improved with some mechanisms which are not simply build something or ask for something. It's a combination of things. This kind of method for studying the features of resilience in a community calls for a specific analysis on how resilience is perceived, is understood, is also become an aspiration for the community. How to make my community safer is a generic concept that's to be operationalized. And this is the second part of our vision. How can we make any kind of assessment process operationalized so that communities can run along this method and sequence of actions to build their own assessment? The key is the indicators of resilience. Indicators is a concept which is in between what you want to assess, which is resilience, and what you can measure, which are data from sensors, whatever. That's usually a proxy for indicators. Indicators are the heart of the process. How can I define something that can show how good resilience is against something? And these indicators can be either defined from literature or can be identified community by community, because they have to be relevant and specific to that community. Not all communities are the same. It's very simple to understand that. At the same time, since it has to be operational, they have to be understandable and usable. And ultimately, of course, useful. Because when I show something and I create my assessment picture in a way, it has to be useful for the community. So it has to show how things may be further studied or changed, taking some actions. This is the third part of our vision. Bringing all members of the community on board allows to make a more powerful assessment of resilience. Technically, an expert can assess resilience, but the expert is not part of the living community. So we had to include into the process of building this assessment the members of the community, and we identified a specific group of people that we call RRTs. You will listen to this regularly, which is local resilience teams. So a specific group of people in the community identified for their experience, history, prevalence, or influence into the community, so that they can stay side by side with the stakeholders and the experts to run the assessment. So all this is, okay, nice said, nice put. Let's see how this collection of data and how this can be, let's say, creating a set of operational tools. I will go quickly to the next slides to bring you to the heart of our project. First, a picture of who we are. If you take the time to check a bit what RESILOC is, okay, we're spanning across Europe. We are currently 7 countries involved with a number of research institutions, and most of it, we have 5 community involved. So when you see the black country, the blue country, it's not that we cover the country, we cover 1 community or 2 communities from that country. In particular, we have 2 communities from Italy, south of Italy in Sicily, Catania, north of Italy, northeast of Italy, Gorizia. We have a village or a small city in Bulgaria, Tedovo. We have a small municipality in Greece, West Achaia, and we have 1 community in Slovenia, Kamnik, which is not an official partner, but it is brought as an example from by the local Sea Protection Administration for a specific case in the mountains. So we try to cover what community means, which is not necessarily a small community. So Catania is a large city, but it is not necessarily a large region, because Tetovo village is a small village in Bulgaria, close to Russia. So these 5 communities will host our trials in the end of the project, or 4 of them actually, not in Kamnik, and we will see how what we will have developed will be actually useful and used in the trials. Just a quick overview to the timeline of the project. As most of this research and innovation project, we had to start with the study phase, when we actually studied what resilience means in communities and when resilience is needed in specific scenarios. We are still finalizing the final part of the method for assessing resilience, which is we are close to the implementation of the first set of tools based on that. The tool phase is exactly the implementation. So something that will be shown, actually we have on next sprint with the users planned for the end of this week. And then we have the trials that will take place next year in the 4 communities. The trials are not just an exercise. As you may imagine, trialing a solution for resilience is not like trialing a tool for rescuing people. It's a longer process, and it takes a couple of months per pilot to run through the process of defining, assessing, and acting on resilience. So it will be a long journey, which takes almost a year to make the complete round of trials in the 4 communities, derive conclusions, validate the results, and potentially involve other communities into the exercise. The real challenge from the scientific point of view for us is to capture what resilience is with 2 main drivers. The first one is reality, which is clearly a complex issue. So it's nearly impossible to capture reality completely. And it is clear for anybody who's working with models. So on the one side, we have all the individual cases and the small cases in reality that show when resilience is needed or useful. And on the other side, we have the model that you have to apply if you want to come to conclusions. This kind of simplification is not easy. We don't know where to draw the line when things are relevant or not. So the only way of doing it is to prepare a solid method, a solid model, and then to challenge it together with the users in the co-creation process. So we say, this is your community, as you tell us, this is how we want to capture the essence of your community. Just confirm that it is what you need more than other things. Clearly, you drop something in the process. And this tension between research and practical tools is key to the project. The balance between where researchers want to move forward and further to find new connection between specific aspects and the practical implementation of a tool that can be used almost in everyday conditions is clearly something that had to be solved. The concept of indicators works very well on this. So we identify specific features from literature, from discussion with the users, from other models, whatever. In the end, all this have to be, as I said, understandable and usable. We cannot ask users to identify data for something they don't understand either how to collect them. The next thing that be added, and it is included in our framework for the assessment, is what we call the targets. So having identify an indicator, which is a sort of something that shows a generic appreciation of where we are. I cannot tell anybody how he or she is if I don't know where he or she wants to be. So I'm not asking any community to follow a specific target for what they have to do in unemployment rate or number of beds in ICUs. It's exactly, they have to set their own goals because they know where the priority is. They know what laws they have to abide to. They also know what the priorities are in terms of policies. A community may want to be more resilient against something than others, or they would prefer to work on the societal part rather than infrastructure part. It's their own decision. We are not there to decide on behalf of them. Therefore, this process of defining the targets is key to our framework for assessment. And this is where the community really comes into the process. The actors that we needed for this process of assessing resilience is basically made by the primary users, those who are in the decision-making chair. So they are the local authorities mainly, not because they are more important than the communities themselves, but they have the budget. They have the mandate to take decisions. So they are the primary user of these practical tools. Secondary users are those who are around them. So the practitioners, those who have a role in increasing safety of the community. Then we have, of course, the beneficiaries, which are the citizens and the society at large. So whoever is benefiting from the process is one of our targets as actor. Between them, there's a special group, as I mentioned, the local resilience teams that represent a specific group of citizens or beneficiaries or NGOs or whatever that carry a specific need or can influence the other to follow a virtuous behavior. So there are key people that connect the project with the community. We couldn't go far to reach everybody in a community. So we needed this sort of mediator between the project and the method and the community. Let's come to the method itself in a way. There's a couple of slides just to summarize what we have been doing, and you will see later on how it could be seen is in a practical case. So first of all, resilience exists if there's something to be resilient against. So we needed to identify scenarios, what the communities see as a challenge or a threat to their own well-being, and it can be very different. So we focused on purpose on natural hazards because they happen frequently, they are understood. They belong to the big concept of a, let's say, natural settlements or urban settlements in nature. So it belongs to the concept of the, let's say, climate change, the project of the robustness and the respect of the environment, so on and so forth. Within the scenario, each community has their own need to avoid, reduce the risks, which just goes into the disaster risk reduction concept, or to simply identify ways of being more reactive, or to train people, to explain people how to behave. There are many different aspects. In between all this, the need is to identify the indicator, as I said. So we started from literature, we talked with experts, we talked with our communities, you will see how we did it. So we came up with a sort of selection of indicator, which is not a closed selection. The method works in adding new indicators and new practice once they become needed, available, or a new scenario is brought into the picture. Once we have the indicators and the way of calculating them using the proxies, we have to define the targets, as I said. This process is very much cooperative. It's working together with the community. So we have to hear, to listen to them, to understand what are the ambitions and where they want to put the bar for the target. Targets means a lot of things. It's not just a number. Is we want to be better than this, not worse than that. It's a bracket when you put your limits, and it could be either for legal reasons or again for political reasons or for practical reasons, for history, whatever the community wants. Once you have this, we can assess resilience along a number of dimensions. And this allows the community members to see visually how they are against their own targets. So where they have to improve, where they have to make changes, where they have to take actions. And this is the last part of the process. Take actions to change something. Actions means to improve a specific aspect of a community in a proxy. You build new hospitals, you change a number, or you change a policy, you put different targets, or you move some budgets from an area to another to be stronger in an area. That's kind of decisions. So all this process is a sort of a standardized method, or at least a pre-standardized method to follow. It's a guideline of things to do. It is a localized assessment. It is not one assessment for all communities all the same, because the personalized assessment is clear because you set the targets, is co-created, so the community works with the researchers, and it is possible to see, check, and assess the impact of decisions after something had happened. So this is a way to replay the game in a way after the event that you had in your radar actually happened. So the presence of the community is key. I will not repeat again what I just said, but the voice of the community members have to be heard. This is something that is especially of value in Europe, which large numbers of local communities and specificities because of the geography, because of the culture, because of the language or whatever. This is very important. We believe that this approach is in a way a richer in scope than the typical scorecard, which is a method, again, for investigating resilience, asking questions to communities. But our process, we believe it is more dynamic and able to capture some specificities in the community. So from this point of view, for us, there's a value beyond the simple technical tool. As a final slide for this deck, okay, we aim to contribute to three main pillars. Okay, the number 3 is always nice to use. There are more than 3, but these are the most important ones. A common approach to the resilience assessment. Resilience is understood, everybody's a buzzword now. Everybody uses resilience, even when it is not needed. But in a way, we would like to drive communities to approach the study and the assessment of resilience in a way which is sort of comparable or reusable. We would like people to learn from experience from their own community, but also from others. And it can be done only if the method is at least comparable. So with the guidelines for using our framework, assessment framework, and the tools should allow our communities to collect data, to share their experiences, and to check together with others what was done, what could have been done, what will be done in the future. And this is the second part, the collection of information. I think that once you identify indicators and you identify the proxies and the data which are underlying the indicators, you start collecting a huge number of valuable information that can be reused for resilience assessment, for checking the impact of decisions, for sharing the mechanisms of resilience in a community, but also to be used for other things. So collecting data is key, especially in this kind of societies we are now. And the way of collecting them is sort of complex, but at the same time, if we give a goal to the people, they will start collecting data because they will feel it is relevant for them and will be useful. So this kind of process of collecting data and share data as much as they can should be a virtual process that can be supported in a way by all the people around the table in a way. The third part is more political. If I have this objective amount of data, if I use them in a well-transparent way to build indicators and to represent the assessment of resilience, and it is objective because you can replay it, you can see the impact of changes in the targets and in the practice, then this becomes a better way for taking decisions. To assess the validity of decisions, the impact of decisions on the safety and lives in the community. And this also becomes a way for the citizens to not to measure, but in a way to understand why the community decided to do some actions and not others. And in the future, to avoid possible mistakes or omissions, or to suggest neighbors what to do, what not to do, not because I shout louder than you, but because it's based on data and a method for assessing resilience. And resilience is the key to navigate through this huge amount of data and events and perception and awareness and whatever is around our societies. Okay, this has been a presentation for, on the one side, we want to do, and on the other side, what we aim to do, and give not just as a technical tool, but also as a concept for having resilience operationalized into the life of our communities, and in principle escalate up to larger communities and to regions. From the rest of today's workshop, you will see how this has been implemented, and we hope that we'll have a nice discussion about this principle, how much they are aligned with your organizations and offices' work, and how this can be further developed together and taken up even after the end of the project. So thank you for now, and I pass back the floor to Karsten for the next presentation. Thank you.